February 14th at 3:17 in the morning, the Edinburgh Police Department received a call of a shooting at the local bar called the Jaguars here in town. Upon arrival, our officers located two individuals, one who had been shot multiple times and the second who had been beaten severely.
Wild, Wild West, where the Hells Angels reign supreme as far as biker gangs. They're allies of the Bandidos in their war against the Mongols. Now, how did this war between the Mongols and the Hells Angels start? Well, Hells Angels didn't really want to have, certainly not black, but Hispanic members either. Mongols sort of started as a reaction to that. And today the Mongols are quite powerful and are vying for control, at least definitely here in California. And then the Bandidos are strong down in Texas. And there's a new player on the scene though, the Pagans.
We learned that the individual who had been shot is an active member of the Bandido Motorcycle Club. And the second individual who was severely beaten is an associate of the Bandido Motorcycle Club. We also discovered that the suspects who are no longer at location are current members of the Mongols and Pagans Motorcycle Club.
Pagans Motorcycle Club, if you haven't heard of them, they're now considered one of the big four, and they're out of Philadelphia. They are what you would call a rough crowd. And a few years back, their new national president, Conan Richter, who had just completed a 15-year term for extorting, I think it was that famous Manhattan strip club. What's it called? Oh, everybody's heard of it. But anyways, it was that Manhattan strip club where all the Wall Street people would go. Conan extorted the owner. I think he firebombed it. And he did about 15 years. And when he got out, he started something called the Blue Wave Mandate, where the Pagans were going to increase the number of their chapters on the East Coast, which they've done. And as part of that, Conan made all the East Coast guys take off the rocker that said what city they were from. The rocker is the place where it'll say, Pagans Motorcycle Club, Camden, New Jersey or something. Everyone east of the Mississippi just wears one that says Pagans. And then they started coming out west here in Texas. They tangled recently with the Bandidos. There was in Edinburgh, Texas, at a strip club called Jaguars. There's a lot of biker activity, does actually occur around strip clubs. They'll own them, or often organized crime owns them, and they'll be the security.
As a result of the individuals involved, it was in the best interest of not only the Edinburgh Police Department, public safety, and our citizens of Edinburgh to launch a massive investigation. I immediately notified the FBI, DEA, ATF, the sheriff, and also the Texas DPS for assistance in this case. It was apparent to us at the time that this investigation would take us statewide, which it did.
Now, Conan Richter, he'll get a story all his own. He's an interesting character. He just had to take a plea agreement to having a gun. So he had just done 15 years. He been out for a few years, launched the Blue Wave. He just took a three-year plea, and new guy, Big Bob, is going to temporarily be the president. So
it's the biggest motorcycle gang bust southwestern Pennsylvania's seen in decades. 30 members and associates of the notorious Pagans Motorcycle Club are charged with trafficking drugs into our communities.
Now, up in Canada, the Hells Angels are considered probably the single most powerful organized crime group nationwide. And the ATF down here in the U.S. considers the big four clubs, the Hells Angels, Outlaws, Bandidos, and Pagans, with the Mongols coming up too as their #1 target for illegal weapons across the country. So 1% motorcycle clubs are in the ATF's crosshairs. Now, a few years back, the Pagans launched something called the Blue Wave to expand. And they were formed in the 50s, and the Pagans didn't become a criminal organization until a guy nicknamed Satan took control in the late 60s. But today they're considered one of the most criminally active, definitely one of the big four outlaw motorcycle clubs. They're feared for their ties to the Italian Mafia, the Aryan Brotherhood, making crystal meth all up and down the eastern seaboard. They're accused of smuggling drugs, running guns on a large scale. They've been implicated in numerous conspiracies, bombings, and weapons deals. Back in 2010, 19 of them were arrested for plotting to kill a Hell's Angel in New York with homemade grenades. In 2018, a Rhode Island clubhouse bust unveiled a large stash of illegal weapons, including a rocket launcher at the Pagans clubhouse. Now, last year, the Blue Waves Move West had its first casualty. On September 12th, Oklahoma Pagans Motorcycle Club member Danny Aaron was shot and killed riding his Harley down Highway 62 near Midwest City. And the 33-year-old was a military vet, and he was a Pagans prospect at the time of his murder. So somebody didn't like them moving in, and it was the Outlaws. Two members of the Outlaws, MC Steve Roberts and Virgil Nelson, have been charged as of the end of last year with first-degree homicide in Aaron's death. And the Outlaws are the most powerful biker gang in the Midwest. Oklahoma would be their turf, probably. They also have a big foothold in that biker hotbed of Florida. Now, this guy who got killed, the Pagan prospect, had served in the Marine Corps. He was one of the Pagans' Oklahoma City chapter, which I think is relatively new. And there had been flare-ups of violence in the Pagans' war for the West Coast, but until that happened, there had been no actual murders. Now, the West Coast push began just back in 2019 per federal law enforcement records. Up in Walla Walla, Washington, Pagans MC members were arrested some months back for assault. And then just a few months ago in winter, a shooting broke out at Jaguar's Gentlemen's Club in Edinburgh, Texas, near San Antonio, when the Pagans' new Rio Grande Valley chapter and the Texas powerhouse, the Bandidos MC, collided on Valentine's Day evening in early 2021. 42 people got charged with assault in connection with the rioting and brawling that resulted after the shooting.
During the investigation, we were able to identify the individuals involved. We were able to obtain 42 arrest warrants and also 10 search warrants.
Back on Valentine's Day of 2021, a big brawl broke out at the Jaguar's Gentlemen Club. 42 people got charged with assault and rioting in connection with the triple shooting and ensuing brawl. Now, under the leadership of National President Keith Conan the Barbarian Richter, like I said, the Pagans launched something called the Blue Wave as an expansion campaign, and it started in 2018 and it moved out west in 2019. Pagans are known for supremacy on the eastern seaboard, and they're looking to grow their ranks along the East Coast and plant flags in the Southwest and West Coast for the first time. Richter's actively forged alliances with Hispanic crime groups and other biker crews to bolster his conquest agenda, specifically the Latin Kings and the California big boys of Hispanic bikers, the Mongols. And with Richter at the helm, the Pagans have more than doubled in size, maybe close to 2,000 members now, opened 15 chapters around the country. They've absorbed and patched over dozens of smaller support clubs. The pivot westward established chapters in Texas, Las Vegas, Oklahoma, Colorado, Arizona, Washington, and Oregon, and we heard what went on in some of those states. Richter's 62, and he just started a 3-year prison term for illegal gun possession stemming from a traffic stop in New Jersey back in February of 2020. In Virginia, Pagans MC leader Robert Big Bob Francis has reportedly assumed the reins as national president following Richter copping his 3-year plea and agreeing to do a couple years in prison for his gun case. And the first salvo in the Pagans Motorcycle Club's battle for the West was fired across the bowl in a Texas strip club. Richter had been running the club from his home base in Long Island, New York. Originally launched in 2018, Richter's Blue Wave plan was just to swallow up territory on the East Coast, But then he immediately, by 2019, started setting his sights on nationwide domination, though. And he targeted West Coast and Southwest locations to put the Pagans' first regional footprint down. Future plans are supposedly in the works for more and more chapters. With finally a move into California where they would challenge the Hells Angels, which combination of the Mongols and the Pagans against the Hells Angels in California is probably a recipe for a lot of violence. And the Blue Wave Mandate is now co-signed by the Latin Kings street gang and the Mongols, like I said. So here you have the Pagans, who are usually associated with white supremacy, linking up with Hispanics, street gangs, and bikers to make a power grab. And the way Richter got arrested was he was, before to get his 3 years, he was driving home from a Pagans party in suburban Philadelphia, and he got pulled over, and someone knew he had a gun in his stash spot. And he could have got, so probably a Pagan told on him, he could have got 10 to 15 years because he's already done a bunch of time, but he took a 3-year plea. Back in the 90s, Richter was the boss just of the Long Island Pagans chapter and the National Sergeant at Arms, the guy in charge of war. And in 1998, he was incarcerated for extortion and attempted murder, and he did 15 years in the feds. Court records indicate Richter became the Pagans' national president at some point in 2017, not long after he got out. Now, there's been 9 new Pagans chapters opened on the East Coast under the Blue Wave Mandate brought up by Richter, and he's said to have a cult of personality appeal throughout the Pagans' ranks. He's as beloved and feared like no other figure in the American biker world has been for decades. Think of him as like the John Gotti of bikers. And according to those familiar with Richter's plan, the Blue Wave, like I said, is aimed at going directly after the Hells Angels, the biggest biker brand in the world, really. And who knows, they might be able to do it, but there'll be probably some serious violence involved. So Kevin Conan the Barbarian Richter's going to be out soon. You had a murder of a Pagans prospect in Oklahoma. You had a recent shooting down in Texas where the Pagans are clashing with the Bandidos, and Pagans linking up with the Latin Kings and the Mongols. Out here in the Wild Wild West, where the Bandidos, the Mongols, the Hells Angels, and the Pagans are starting to go at it. Al Prophet, American Dope.